since I started wearing my new glasses, the new prescription, and a 1.5 base down prism, and the base down prism shifts my perception of the ground up, so my brain can perceive the ground better. And there have been a couple, I've had them for about maybe 5 weeks at this point, plus a prescription that is dampening my right eye. So if I close my if I close my right eye, everything is really clear. If I close my left eye, it's still clear, but little bit, it's just a little bit blurry. And they're doing that by putting less correction in my right eye, so it's 0.25 less correction, and also by not correcting the astigmatism in the right eye. And they're doing this so that my right eye does not take over. But in reality, it's not an eye issue. Remember, it's a brain issue, and my brain will so preferentially use my right eye compared to my left eye, if not completely suppress the left eye, which I think I was doing for about 40 years. If I don't do that, my brain will choose that right eye, and at that point you're losing sensory awareness of the ground on the left. And that's a really important concept in PRI, because we're all right dominant. Left AIC, right BC shifts your weight to the right at least a little bit, if not a lot. Because you have more weight over on that right side, you have less awareness of the ground on the left side. So we call that the left ground, right? There is one ground, but we're dividing it up into the ground underneath your right foot and the ground underneath your left foot. When you're in this pattern, because you're oriented to the right and your weight is shifted to the right, you lose sense of the ground on the left, and that can then throw your sensory perception off, because you remember your brain is blind. It's just this blob of matter sitting inside this cranium. It has to make sense of your senses, all this sensory information that's coming through your eyes and through base and what you feel underneath the ground, as well as the internal, I don't speak French, milieu, I can't even, but I think that's how you say it, milieu, what you perceive going on inside your body. Those three things are probably the three biggest, and then teeth also. But leaving teeth out, those three sensory inputs create your world. And when you lose those sensory inputs, or when you lose one sensory input, the ground underneath your left side, and you have too much ground on the right side, couple that with, for me, a right eye that is being used and a left eye that is being ignored, at least partially, you're creating a system, a brain, a body that's very aware of the right side and not very aware of the left side. And that becomes problematic over time. So when I left, before I left Nebraska last month in August, Ron said that I would probably have to take down my orthotics. So here's my orthotic. Very high arch, because I had very high arches. The fascinating thing is, the first time I put these on, I went for a walk, and by the end of it was weird to begin with, because everything was just closer to me and bigger. But by the end of the walk, I was feeling my arches like I had never felt them before. And almost to the point that, wow, my arches are uncomfortable because I'm feeling them so much. I've never had that perception of my arches. Now, I got these orthotics because my arches were so high, and I got them in April. My arches were so high that they could never come down. They could never come down into pronation because my arches were so high. And so my brain didn't have a sense of pronation. Without pronation, heel strike supination, arch comes down, which is pronation, and then resupination, you push through your big toe. My arches could never come down, so my brain never had a sense of pronation, so my body couldn't relax fully. I knew this was an issue for a very, 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 very long time, and I've been trying to get pronation even more on my left than my right for over a year and a half. And so finally I succumbed to my inadequate orthotic designs which got me pretty far because they actually got my face to even become more symmetrical. I went and got orthotics. Now, I got these orthotics, allowed me to pronate for the first time because it brought the ground up to my foot, which couldn't get down to the ground. It gave me a sense of my arches and a sense of pronation. And at that point, my leg length discrepancy went away. It evened out my gait mechanics, so certain muscles obviously were able to finally relax, and others were able to kick in, although I didn't really feel a huge difference. But whatever, my legs are now the same length. They were always the same length, but they were being kept in a shortened position on one side because of muscular contraction. So these were able to get me out of that position. Now, once I got my, okay, no, let me backtrack. Now these, after I was wearing them in, I'm not sure, it wasn't that long after that I started to develop some back tension, lower back tension that I didn't have before. And I thought that was kind of odd. And I kind of told this story. So I then realized, oh, you know what? I have to get my prescription updated. Let me go to the optometrist. It's been over about a year. It's been over a year, so let me make sure that my prescription's up to date. Went to the optometrist. I increased the correction in my left eye. Felt better immediately, less tension, but it was still there. And then I started experimenting with my eyes. Right eye closed. I could touch my toes. Two eyes, right eye open, left eye open. I would tense up. I mean, you wouldn't feel it tensing up, but after a while, you'd start to feel the back tension come back. Couldn't touch the toes. So I realized that's why I went out to Nebraska, because I knew there was something going on. Now, with the glasses that I got, they allowed my brain to sense the ground. I was sensing the ground so much that now my arches actually started to come down. So my arches have sunken, and these were now too high. So I had to take these out. And I went back to the Brooks, the sneakers I had been wearing, but I put the insole, the natural insole, and these are made for higher arched people. And so I went back to these, and I've been wearing these, feeling good. A couple days ago, feeling weird again. And the interesting thing is I started to break out. Now, you're going to say, what does that have to do with anything? My breakouts are not natural breakouts in terms of just acne. I react to certain food. And I've made other videos about this. It's a histamine issue. It's an autonomic nervous system issue. I think it's tension. And when I'm not sensing the ground properly, again, you don't know that you're not sensing the ground properly, but your brain is not sensing it properly. It develops too much tension, and for some reason I react, probably because the vagus nerve goes down to the gut. Who knows what it is? But I know it is a histamine issue because it will occur with foods that have high amounts of histamine, or the foods that are known to cause the body to react with higher amounts of histamine. And I'll react to that. There's another thing, sugar on an empty stomach, and any type of cooking oils that are not just olive oil, butter, coconut oil, avocado oil. All the other ones will often make me break out. However, when I was sensing the ground appropriately and getting pronation appropriately, I'm clear. So I know it's a tension issue of not sensing the ground properly. Now, these glasses made me sense the ground so well that I had to get rid of these orthotics as they're now too high and my arches have come down. Well, 2 or 3 days ago, felt the same thing occurring, that my arches, again, felt incredibly low when I was just standing barefoot on my carpet. I'm like, wow, I really feel my arches. And I had been breaking out. I'm like, where's this coming from? And so I realized, I think my arches have come down again, or my sense of pronation of my arches, of the ground, is so much better that now these are too high. So now I've gone back to my New Balance. I've had these for a while, Fresh Foam 1080s. Are they 1080s? Yeah, 1080s here. And this is more of a neutral arch, whereas this one was a higher arch, and this one was a way high arch. So now I'm back to like a neutral arch, which is absolutely fascinating, and this is more comfortable for me. But however, about a month ago I tried wearing, no, not a month ago, like 3 weeks ago, I tried wearing these. They still weren't doing it. I didn't feel comfortable in these at all. But now these feel really comfortable, much more comfortable than these. And I tested my eating habits last night with some things that may have made me break out 3 or 4 days ago, and my skin is clear. Tension can drive skin issues, which I think people know, but it's just fascinating that my skin condition, my breakouts have decreased the more grounded I've become. And to me, everything's a grounding issue. What is preventing you from grounding? Well, for me on that left side, my visual system would not allow me to sense the ground. Just because you can see doesn't mean that your brain is making use of that visual stimulus appropriately. My left eye works. I cover my right eye, my left eye is right there. But for 40 years, my brain decided to ignore my left eye, either wholly or partially, I don't know which one. So just because proper sensory information is coming in doesn't mean your brain is actually using it. It can choose to ignore it. And those are the strange things that can occur. And I have found this with at least three people in the past month in online consultations. I could see something was wrong with their eyes, or they couldn't stand in a particular position that I put them in, what we call left stance, without having a really adverse reaction. Sweating, nausea, just standing on the left leg, because I was taking them out of compensation and I was not allowing them to use their visual system to help stabilize them, and they couldn't really even do it. One gentleman from, I think it was in Belgium, he couldn't even get onto his left leg. Another gentleman from Pennsylvania, he couldn't stand on his left leg. He had to open the window. He started sweating and he felt nauseous. So they both went to neuro-optometrists, and they both have pretty substantial visual issues. Double vision, definitely in Philadelphia, double vision. I'm sorry, Pennsylvania. And the other gentleman in Belgium, I can't remember exactly what it was. But either way, their left eyes and right eyes are not working appropriately, and their brain cannot incorporate sensory information appropriately to produce the proper muscular output. Input versus output, that's what we're talking about. If you can't get the proper sensory input, your muscular output, your muscular function will be off. You will end up in a pattern, and a pattern that you probably can't get out of. And most people are not thinking vision nor teeth, but both can do it. And those are pretty big drivers of tension, and tension can then make you react to maybe particularly foods, inflammation. This inflammatory process, apparently the vagus nerve is important in that inflammatory process. So maybe tension was causing malfunction of my vagus nerve, and I was becoming inflamed through my skin to things that under normal circumstances I wouldn't be. So that is my video for today, a hodgepodge of different things, but fascinating. My arches have come down. I'm better grounded when I have the right glasses and the correct insoles. I'm very much less tense, no tension in my back, and my skin reflects my life. So there you go. Remember, if you found this video interesting, helpful, or if you think someone else might find this information interesting or helpful, you could always share it, you could like it, you could subscribe to the channel, comment. I'll always answer as many comments as possible whenever I see it, because that will all help to spread this information, because again, not many disciplines are seeing this the way postural restoration does, and it can be life-changing when you take into account all these different sensory systems that come together to produce movement and or lack of movement.